going on, guys? Cameron and Todd, we're back for the final of our 8-week series that took 12 weeks, I think, to get done. We really sorry about that. Again, we do a lot of stuff here on a skeleton crew, but we're both here for once, and we're actually going to figure out how to do this if I can turn down my phone. So there we go. But anyway, we've been doing a lot of really cool stuff. I don't know if you've seen on our Facebook pages and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. We got all kinds of new data loggers coming out for new industries and things like that. So you guys will kind of slowly but surely be seeing stuff come up and about. So be sure to check our social media stuff as you go and scope it out.
And you saw the guest appearance there a few minutes ago by our president, Tim Anderson. So
I
was just trying to explain the red slender man figure that's walking across the screen. So
That's Santa Claus.
Oh, is that it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyhow, so no, but we've been getting. It was interesting. We were just before we dive into this. Appreciate the feedback you guys have been providing on these webinars. We'll look at when we do the next series about if we're going to adjust the timer, all that. But I was just telling Cameron I was at the NHRA event in Joliet this past weekend, and several racers and customers who were just spectating at the event alike came by to say that they found them quite informative, and that they hope that we continue doing them, obviously with a variety of products, not just what we've covered here, but some maybe of our VNet sensors, some of our Pro systems, things like that.
Yeah, if you guys feel free to always comment on one of our posts or shoot us a message on Facebook or whatever, email, and say, hey, we'd like to see this. It's always good to hear from the people out there to see what they want to see, so we'd like to talk about something that you guys are interested in for sure. So, but basically today we're just going to talk about the UDX Display only dash. This is a dash that's been around for a very long time within the Racepak world, and it's served a lot of purposes. It actually started in the snowmobiles, believe it or not, and in its early existence, and kind of morphed into the drag racing world when the digital instrumentation started to take off. So, but then we have a bunch of different models, but this particular one that we're going to talk about today is just the UDX Display only dash, which actually plugs into either one of our V300, V500, or Sportsman data loggers. And let's tear it open and see what we got.
Okay. All right, so just like many of our other dashes that we've covered, we obviously have the insert giving you the information on the video help that's available, again, on our YouTube page, any of our social media. A mounting template so that you don't have to guess where the holes need to be cut when you're cutting out your dash. And we touched on this in one of the previous webinars too. We do have the panels available for the UDX. It already has the cutouts, and it's a trim to fit. We have those available in a fake carbon fiber finish, a black plastic, and a kind of brushed aluminum plastic finish. So those are available if you're at that point where you're trying to mount the dash into the car and don't really want to fabricate something yourself. So we have the main unit here. I'll just bring it up for just a second so I can reach the rest of the items that are in here. Because we have, in conjunction with that, we have the 36-inch T cable that comes with it, and that's how obviously that's going to connect in via the VNet port on the back of the dash. You'll connect that cable in there, and then it tees into the rest of the Racepak system, into the rest of your VNets, wherever that's located on the vehicle, whether you've got it in line on the firewall or, in the case of the dragster, right up front. So, and then there's also a connector kit that comes along with it. We have. This is if you want to run an external shift light or warning light, you can plug this into the back of the dash, because sometimes people will want to put one that's more in line with their vision when they're looking down track. You're maybe not looking down at the dash of the car when you're going 170 miles an hour. So
yeah, a lot of guys like to use those MSD little pencil shift lights. Something to keep in mind when you're wiring in a shift light, make sure it was 300 milliamps or less. To wire to this dash. Some people we've seen, they wire these huge lights that just burn the dash up because it's got so much voltage going through it. But anything LED usually is good, like those MSD little pencil ones. Those work out good, or they even have a little bit bigger one now. But anything under 300 milliamps will work for you. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the incandescent bulb, old style shift lights and warning lights, those just tax the system too hard. And then there is a spare connection, plastic connector for the other port, again, if you want to wire up some of the external functions that are available. And all this is contained in the manual that comes with any of the products, so you'll be able to see that in there. So.
And that's on a USB stick.
Yes.
Usually.
Yes, exactly. So.
Yeah.
Somebody stole the one out of here.
Yeah, I think it grew legs.
So.
Actually, I think I used it earlier.
Okay. All right.
It's my fault. So basically, I guess we could talk a little bit about the unit itself. First of all, it has a couple buttons on it for you. The display button is obviously to toggle through the pages. You push the button, and there's 4 pages of inputs in here, just like our other IQ3 dash. So you can essentially put 24 things on the actual dash itself, and just toggle through the pages and whatnot. And you have a different mode button for min and max recalls and things like that. This does not do any sort of playback. We get a lot of questions a lot that everybody asks. Can I play my run back? The reason why we don't do playback on the UDX dash is because you're not really going to learn much, because usually when you're looking at data, you're going to need to see some sort of wheel speed or something like that to see if you're spinning the tires, etc. But it's going to be moving so fast on the dash that you're really not going to understand it'll just be a number flying by. We have an older dash that's called the UDX replay dash, which is basically like a playback tack. That one does replay, but they all look the same, but there's a whole bunch of different internals and whatnot. So, but on the back side, as far as mounting, it's super easy. You got the same studs just like you would on an IQ3. Comes with a template. Just drill 4 little holes and screw it in there. It's super easy, and you'll just have to cut. You don't have to cut a huge hole in your dash. You just have to cut for these if you want it to be somewhat flush mount. Just cut the outline for all the inverters and stuff in there. But the cool thing about all of our dashes and all of that is, again, our VNet CAN bus. The VNet CAN bus is really cool because when you buy this and you already have your data logger built into the system, and you say, oh man, like I don't want to have to run all these wires, all you got to do is it powers just right off of this one cable. So you literally, Todd talked about it a second ago, plug it into the back of the dash and run this to the rest of your VNet. It gets all the information, it gets the voltage, everything straight from this one cable, so it makes it really easy to wire. So
right, a lot of people look at the wires that come with the kit and say, I've got to run, do I need to run this up there to get my oil pressure and to get my my temperatures, my voltage? No, everything, once it's communicating on the VNet system, any of that information then is available for display on the dash.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we can start kind of talking about how to program this thing. Kind of like the IQ3 a little bit. It's a little bit different. There's one extra step usually because these have been around so long. You just basically have to name the pages. So we'll kind of go through that right quick here and discuss it a little bit. So basically what you're going to want to do is get your computer to work. And then from there, you're going to open up the DataLink 2 software. Just go ahead and double click on that. And then basically, you just, like anything you do is going to be through the config file. So your file, open car configuration, and you select your config from there. So you have, in this case, we had a bunch in there, but the V300 256A is the one that I was using all the samples for. So just click OK after you select your appropriate configuration file. And then from there, all you have is all of your basically your channels for your data logger, etc. But you need to read in your dash into the system, so you can click on the read button there, or you can do the edit and read VNet. But as you do that, I've already done it here, you're going to see dash page 1 and then some dash warnings and a bunch of SN 502, 3, 4. We get a lot of questions about that, but basically that's just, we program the first 2 and you need to do the second 2. So just right click on SN 502 and then basically just type in dash page 2 and so on, dash page 3, and as I go here I just do them all real quick for you, 3, 4, and then the same thing with the dash warnings. We're going to do the exact same thing, it's just you need to label those dash warning. So if you get confused, it'll have the serial number in there always, and it'll say V dash display or warning. So as we get to the warnings, you can type in dash warning 2 and then all the way up to dash warning number 6. So I'll get that done right quick here. And we'll discuss on a few more other things as we program the dash pages. I just wanted to show you guys this part because it's a lot of people don't, when they read it in, they get all these extra channels and they say, oh my gosh, like what is all this 50 stuff? So If you get a V300 and a dash from us, this is all usually done for you because they set up the dashes, but this is something for if you're adding a dash to the system or something like that. So keep that in mind. And then almost finished here.
And you're not necessarily stuck with having to call them dash warning 1, 2, 3, or 4. I've gone and worked on several people's systems that have, the one specific to oil pressure warning. They'll make that oil warning page or water temp page or trans temp warning or something like that, so that you know exactly what it is looking at the config.
Absolutely.
And as always, save your work.
Yes, you want to make sure you go up, file, and save. I did that here. And usually, after you do the file and save, you can send the information over to the data logger as well, just as a good habit. That's more important in the next clip that we're going to talk about here in a second. But you always, and obviously when you're doing all this programming and typing everything in, the serial cable to the data logger needs to be hooked up and the power turned on when you're sending and reading and all this stuff in. It does not hook to the back of the dash. It hooks to the Sportsman, the V500, or the V300 when you do it, because basically the data logger is the brains and the dash is essentially the slave to the data logger, and it just does what it's told. So what we can do is we can start doing a little programming of the dash here. So let me see here. So basically, again, you're going to open up the software. I just added this in here just as a reminder, but same thing we just did. Open car configuration, select your config file, and then you have all of your dash pages. So basically, we're going to right click on one of the dash pages. We'll do dash page 1, and in here you have your dash page name, you have the unit serial number, and then the channel type of what it is. And then around the whole deal you have a pink dash is basically the whole layout of what you have going on there. So you can just basically, it's point and click. So you click, let's start with the upper left, and you're going to click the CAN ID. The CAN ID is what you want to put there, so it's just a little drop down, and then usually in the upper left a lot of guys put voltage, so we'll put voltage on there. And then the readings to average is how many times you want the dash to sample, because the VNet rate is so fast you can average it out, so usually we put 5 or 10 in there. Decimal point to display is something that how many decimal points after the number do you want to view. So logger volts usually you want 1, so that way you can read 12.1.
Right. And then keeping in mind here, we'll touch on it after we're done here, because I can see we're moving ahead and doing the bottom row channels, but there's some specific things to take into account when dealing with that upper left-hand corner, but we'll talk about that after you're done programming this bottom left-hand corner here.
Yeah, so basically the same thing on the bottom left, and in the UDX, as you can see in the bottom there's some check boxes for water, fuel, EGT, etc. For this particular one I programmed looks like EGT, so I just go ahead and click that. This does not allow you to type in your own text, so there's already some that are burned into the board. So if you put something there and it was trans temp, you can put the value there, it just will not show the actual, it won't say trans temp like an IQ3 would.
Right, again, showing its heritage to the snowmobiles, where it has EGT1, EGT2, and EGT3 available for the 3-cylinder.
Yeah, so basically just kind of the same thing. This next one here looks like I just put clutch RPM just as a sample, and I deselected the oil pressure so that way it wouldn't show up. And then as you go, just make sure you always click send configuration when you're all finished there, because that way you got to send the information from the dash to the data logger itself. So
okay, and like I was saying there, just pay particular attention to when you're programming the UDX dash. This upper left-hand corner gets a lot of people trapped. Much like the single digit on the IQ3, this upper left-hand corner has some constraints to it. So most of the display areas here have no problems displaying 4 digits. This upper left-hand corner, because it's such a small area, can only read, you had done battery volts with 1 decimal point. So the maximum value we can display in that instance is 19.9. So if you're running a 20 volt system, somehow this thing gets 20 volts, it'll still max out at 19.9. Some people have used fuel pressure up there in the corner, and they display 2 decimal points, and if they go over 10, it pegs at 9 or 1.99. I'm sorry. So it can only, first digit can only ever be a 1, and then the 2 remaining ones can be 0 through 9, and then the decimal point. So just use extra caution when programming that. That's the only one you really need to pay particular attention to on this dash.
Yeah, and then what he was talking about voltage, Something to always keep in mind, our data loggers, will they work with 16 volts? Yes, they will. The dashes will also work with 16 volts, but you want to make sure when you plug these battery chargers in, you turn the power to the dash off, plug the battery charger in, and then turn the battery charger back on, because what happens is sometimes those 16 volt chargers shock everything over 20 volts for just a split second, and it can actually fry the backlights in these UDX dashes. And a lot of times people say, oh man, I've burnt the UDX light out in my dash 3 times. Well, it turns out 9 times out of 10 it's because they're over voltaging it and they don't even realize it. So you can leave it turned on after, so just plug the charger in with the power off, and then turn it back on if to run your fans or whatever as you go, and you can see the stuff from there. So other than that, basically the UDX just has one other little quick thing, is all the warning lights. So as far as programming the warning lights, it's essentially the same thing. I already have it queued up here aside from the open car configuration, but it's just a matter of right clicking on what you want there. You have your dash warning, you can label it, like Todd said, pretty much anything you want. And then basically what you want to talk about is your input channel parameters. So your input channel parameters, for this case, I have oil pressure, and then you basically select whatever you want it to be, and you set your low and your high alarm limit. Let's see, I think I put 15 in here for that. So that means anytime that the oil pressure goes below 15 psi or above 500, which obviously above it doesn't really matter, but you got to make sure you click the output falls when value goes inside or outside the window. You want to make sure it's outside the window, so that way, obviously, if you get less than 15, it turns the light on. You have another input in here that you can actually, I programmed it to where you can see engine RPM, so that way the light's not on when your power's not on. If your power's on and the car's not running, you don't have a light blaring at you saying, oh, you have no oil pressure. Well, you can actually set it with a second input, so that way both channels have to be met in order for the light to turn on. So that way, this one I have programmed. I'm just going to put anything above 100 RPM, and the high alarm, I just put 10,000. But that way, if there's no oil pressure and it's above 100 RPM, it will flash the light. If it's 0 oil pressure and the engine's not running, you're gonna have no light. So, and as you program all that stuff, again, make sure you click send configuration as you go to send it over to the data logger itself, and then by clicking OK just to get out of the box, and click file and save. So, but yeah, I mean, you can put these warning lights to anything that you have on the VNet. So if you have a trans temp or fuel pressure, even whatever it is, like I said, in those input boxes, you can pretty much put whatever you want to do in there. So, but
yeah, and you can also, in each of those warnings down in the lower left hand corner, if you look at the window, you can actually put in the warning text that you want. There again, you're limited to 4 characters, but you can at least put some warning, so because it'll flash the warning lights on the side of the dash, and if you have as Cameron was saying, a couple of warnings, so oil pressure, water temp, trans temp, you can at least put up something so you know when the warning light goes off, you look down, you can see H2O or oil or something like that, you know what the warning is.
Right, exactly. That's all done through the VNet ID. So, but basically, other than that, it's a quick little walk around the UDX dash. It's a pretty basic unit, but packs a lot of punch. This is the one that I use in my Super Comp car myself and my uncle's top dragster. I like this one a little bit better. One of the cool things I like about this one is actually the fact that I wouldn't say that the font is bigger, but with my helmet, headstock, and all that stuff, it's spaced out. The overall unit is a little bit bigger, so that way I just feel like I can see it a little bit better because all the numbers are spread out a little bit more. So if you have a vision issue and you're just worried about that, I would recommend these. It's not the newest, latest, and greatest one, but it still packs the same punch as the IQ3 does. So. Well,
yeah, and that's part of the reason. This thing's basically 16 years old,
right.
and we've not changed the design very much because it's been so popular with so many of the racers. It has the large digital readout for the TAC RPM as opposed to the slightly smaller one for the IQ3. So still very common. People ordering systems even today and ordering UDX dashes with them. So.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess now, if you guys would like, if you have any certain questions you want to ask, we can kind of hang out for a minute and just talk about anything that you have. I mean, it can be UDX related or it can just be Racepak related. We can talk about, whatever you guys like. I mean, if you want to talk top fuel, we can talk top fuel. If you want to talk, nostalgia funny cars, we like those too, or bracket racing, we're pretty much open to anything, but we can keep it Racepak related also if you'd like. So, or I mean, what time works for you guys? This is the wrap up basically of our 8-week series that took 12 weeks, but it's if you guys, we get compliments on these webinars, but if a different time works for you guys better, or we want to do this on Friday nights or whatever, I know you can stream them on YouTube after we're done with the live stuff, but I know a lot of people like to do the live interaction, so do we like to actually talk with our customers and stuff and interact with you guys too. So I mean, that's kind of the advantage of the Facebook Live thing. So if there's anything ever that you guys are interested in, just let us know and we'll go from there. So let's see if we got anything. Let's see here.
Might be good.
I don't see anything here.
Okay. So what we've got coming up in the coming weeks, you'll be able to catch any of us at the NHRA national events. We'll be heading off to NHRA Denver here in a week. Sonoma, Seattle, the 2 weeks following that on the Western Swing. I'm actually going to be playing hooky this weekend. I'm going to take the top fuel car up to Lancaster and work the bugs out just in case you feel like you want to drive it this fall. So
that'll be happening.
But yeah, if there's like we said, if there's anything that you guys need, you can always get a hold of us by calling our toll-free number or by grabbing a hold of us on social media.
Oh, here we go. We got one. Have we covered ARC module programming? We have not covered that, but that is something that we can monitor on our Racepak stuff. It's via a VNet module that hooks to the ARC module. Basically, it's depending on which one you have. Well, I mean, there's the Davis, then you have the actual MSD ARC one, but it's just a voltage reference to where you can see when it's actually turning on. When you have, whenever that module sees voltage, it'll put a line on the graph. That is something that we can do. If you, I mean, I know you see that in the field a lot, but
yeah. Well, that would be when we talk with Eric over in who does a lot of the drag radial stuff. He's big on that, so maybe that'll be a good time to have him do a guest spot. So I know you guys are probably tired of seeing the two of us, so we're talking about we'll probably be doing the IQ3 Street Dash and a few other things here in the coming weeks. We're also going to look at doing a couple of shorter segments for the Pro systems, which we've touched on earlier on in the webinar series. We talked about the fact that we use the Pro data loggers on the nostalgia funny cars, the alcohol dragsters, alcohol funny cars, and the fuel cars. So we'll be doing, in the coming weeks, we'll be doing some small segments on those, kind of showing the difference between the V300 versus the Pro 3 and the Pro 3A, and the connectoring system, what the main differences are, and why we recommend those data loggers for those applications.
Yep. Shannon, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything is well. But it's coming. Don't worry. Sooner, I think, than you think. But we just want to make sure that we're super careful on how we design it, but that we have a lot of things that are coming down the pipe here at Racepak that I think that will basically revolutionize the data logging world, and I think you guys are all going to be pretty psyched on that. And hello, Brad.
Glad you're watching. Hope you got that transducer box installed today.
Yeah. It's not 9 o'clock. Oh, well, maybe it is in Indy.
Almost.
Yeah. You're almost off work. So, let's see. I don't see anything else, but I guess we could do a huge shout out to all of our Team Racepak guys. We had a double up over the weekend in Chicago with Megan Meyer and Zach Sackman. They killed it over the weekend, and congrats to them. Like we're super psyched for you guys. So let's see. Thanks, Todd, for getting us a turbo RPM.
Yeah, we're taking a look at that a new sensor for doing turbo RPM. So with a different style turbo. So we're waiting to hear back on that. That test will actually be going tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes.
You need a programmable multi-channel event marker, maybe 8 to 10 events. Any chance that will be available? I mean, there's a couple different ways you could do that, I guess. You could do essential. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to do it progressive or if you're needing like a an input for one to output something else. You could do basically, we have a bunch of event markers that you could basically buy a VNet module for all of those.
Right, we have the 4-dig ins and 4-dig outs, so we can do multiple inputs, but we don't have anything that does 8 to 10. However, we could stack a couple of those if required. Right. We also have, on the Pro side, again, we have a warning light module which can go ahead and take some information and send outputs based off of that, but it's pretty much just to drive LEDs to alert the driver to a situation.
Yeah. I guess the only other option would be a smart wire. Mm-hmm. You could do a lot of stuff with that in regards to vehicle wiring and whatnot, but you could basically control a lot of things with logic with that as well. Kind of like the 4-dig in, but just your whole car, I guess. So, let me see here. See if I got one more here. On and off recording. So you want to basically, I mean, if you just want to see when something is turning on and off, that's easy. Let's just do that with any of our event markers. We have a 12-volt version, a 5-volt version, or the 4-dig in or whatever. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. So, but yeah, let me see here. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to get this to refresh, so you guys are probably seeing it a little faster than me. So, but yeah, other than that, looks like I think we're dialed in for tonight. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to hit us up on Facebook or any other social media stuff, and we're going to also try to do something during the week too, to where it's just going to be like a five style questions that we see, on at Joliet or something, like the top 5 things that Todd saw or whatever. He's going to give me a list and we can kind of discuss it, kind of more of an open forum type of deal, kind of like what we're doing right now, just not zoning in on a certain product, just to kind of just talk Racepak. And if you even want to talk racing, I talk racing all day. It's what I try to do. So
it's one of the perks of working here. But to expand on what Cameron's talking about, so I'll come back from a national event just like we did in Joliet here, and we helped a few people there. I mean, there were pretty long days there because we had the JEGS All-Stars, and we had basically just every category represented there. So we were very busy, but we come back and there's a few things that we see that are recurring issues, not necessarily hardware issues, but hey, the customers are having a problem understanding why we do this, or that this is in the software maybe a lot of people aren't aware of. So we'll come back and we'll discuss this in a forum the following week to try to improve our tech support, to try and improve our documentation, and then that's sometimes material that we use to bring to either create a video or do a webinar on. So we'll be doing those instead of compiling them over a long time, like we said. We'll probably do them as they come in fresh, like on the Monday or Tuesday following. We'll get together and say, hey, these are the top 5 things we discovered, and Cameron or I or somebody will get online and we'll go ahead and do that. And while it's still fresh and while it's still topical, we'll take care of it then.
But other than that, thanks guys, and if you guys are racing this weekend, best of luck to you.
Good luck. Stop guessing.
Start winning.